So this is a really important topic, just a really important thing for people to understand, mostly so that we can identify when these kinds of things are happening in our community or in our world so that we can use our voices to try and prevent that. I know that all three of us have been to concentration camps before.
Mm.
Um, let's go ahead and talk about our experiences, kind of what we saw, what we were feeling as we were going through these camps. I've been to two. Mr. Alexandre, how many have you been to?
I have only been to Dachau.
Okay. And Chitwood, just Dachau?
Sorry, my internet was just cutting out a little bit. I think I know what you're talking about, though. I this last December, I had the opportunity to travel to Munich, so I've been to Dachau as well.
Yeah. So I've been to Dachau and I've been to Sachsenhausen, which is just outside of Berlin. And just going to these places, I mean, they're perfectly set up museums. I believe it's a requirement in Germany that students have to go and visit them. Isn't that right, Mr. Alexandre?
I do believe that is
I
correct.
think so. And so these are really well preserved, um, really museums now. But you walk into them and it's just an eerie feeling, absolutely bizarre to be walking through the gates into these places that were just sheer terror. And so, in most of the places, most of the barracks have been knocked down, but they usually have two or three
Yep.
that are still up and standing. There's usually the gas chambers that you can go and visit. Crematorium usually is right next to it. Um, and then walking around Dachau, there's like plaques where different horrible things happen. Like
Mhm.
there's still mass graves. There's the place where they would line people against the wall and shoot them. There's the place where they would hang people. And all of this stuff is pointed out, and you can go and you see it, and you're just like, holy crap, I can't believe that I'm standing in a place that was so evil.
And I think one thing that really sunk in for me when me and my wife traveled to Germany, we went to Dachau. The camp itself was did definitely left us awestruck and kind of feeling some of the exactly what you just said. But there was something that actually hit home a little bit for me was as you travel to Dachau, um, ironically you have to take a train. It's just the most, I guess, efficient way of travel to the outside regions of Munich. But from that train station, you have the opportunity to get on a bus, or you have an opportunity to get to take what is called the Path of the Fallen, which is about a 45-minute walk from the train station to the site, and is what the best recreation of the path that um, people were forced to take as they were being sent to these concentration camps and internment camps throughout the region. So what me and my wife did is, as we got off the train, as we got to the site, we had plans on kind of taking the bus. And what I saw was something I didn't want to be a part of when I was going to and visiting the site. Was it seemed like I was just going to be a tourist at one of these sites. And that was the exact opposite of what I was there for and what I personally wanted to be there and what was in uh, my sights of making this trip to Dachau. So there was hundreds of people that were getting on these buses and waiting in line to take their cameras and take photos of Dachau, and take this short 5-minute bus ride to the site. So I look to my wife and I say, it's about 34 degrees out, so it's pretty cold. It's the middle of December. It's late December, so it's very brisk. And I said, bundle up because we're about to take a 45-minute walk. And on this walk, it really kind of set in for me as to what it was I was about to go to and what it was I was about to experience. And being a history teacher, I mean, we all have vivid understandings of what it is that we teach when we get to the Holocaust, but really taking that time, especially with what Dachau has to offer, in preparation to get there. I think taking that path of the fall and walking really kind of let it sink in and really put me in the right mindset in visiting one of these sites. I think too often we see national monuments, even cemeteries are treated as if they're just tourist sites, right? And when we get to some of these historical sites that have much more value than just you taking a selfie or a picture, it's important for us to understand what it is that we're going to and why we are going there. That is more than just taking a selfie for Instagram.
Well, I don't recall having that opportunity with the walk. I don't know if that was something that was in place when I had gone in 2001. So my wife and I, we just basically drove. And the thing that was most interesting about, or maybe not interesting, but surprising, was where it's located now, because of course you've got apartment buildings and you've got like what, if I remember correctly, like almost a little strip mall kind of across the street where there's areas to go get something to eat, et cetera, and then all of a sudden you have this enormous camp, and that was kind of shocking to me when I walked in. It's like, man, this place is much larger than I had expected.
Yeah, and on that path, we got lost in a rural neighborhood. Like we were walking through like just down a regular street that you would walk in,
right?
Throughout Tracy. It was like
weird.
You're in a just a small rural town, and all of a sudden you have this pretty atrocious.
Yeah, big giant camp just out of the blue, and that was. For me, that was kind of odd. I don't know. Just it felt strange.
When you're there, you're only seeing, I think, 30% of the total perimeter of the camp itself. There's at least 50 to 60% more of the camp's, I guess, used land territory that is not a part of the memorial site.
Interesting.
So the sheer size of it is just massive.
Yeah, it's huge. And one of the things that stood out for me was walking in, and when you see the Arbeit macht frei signs. Now, of course, the main entrance to go, starting with the museum, is on. I can't even. I don't know if this would be the back or the front side, but it's kind of like the big gate to go in. But then you have some of the smaller wrought iron gates on the other side that just says Arbeit macht frei, and you just think about the psychological warfare being played there. Work makes you free. And so it just kind of sets this tone. You do what you're supposed to do, and you will be free at some point. But of course, we all know that that's just. Again, psychological warfare tactics to put the captives at ease, which is it's a horrible situation no matter what. But in regards to photos and selfies and all of that stuff, what was interesting is I was there in the middle of summer, and the day, it was a beautiful day. There were kids on the grounds of Dachau, and very surprisingly, these young kids they're not behaving like young children.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very calm, quiet group. I mean, and there were people, roaming around the camp, but it's almost like whether you have an understanding of what this place is, it creates a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
of some sort, to where it almost is like, okay, you walk in and then bam, there's this immediate sombering experience. And didn't matter how many hours we were there. I mean, I was probably there 3 or 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That was the experience the entire time. It didn't matter where I was at the camp, whether it was at the crematorium or at the blood ditch, Mr. Nunn, that you were referring to, with the lining up people to be shot. It was very, very, I don't know. I don't have words to describe the feeling, and it was how I felt. And from what I observed, it seemed like many other people, just based on their behavior, may have been feeling something similar that I was feeling at the time.
Well, it's very humbling to walk into one of those places. To walk in, I mean, it is humbling. It's also kind of at the same time blood curdling to know what it is you're walking into and to know the experiences of the people who went through these gates. Um, and really, I mean, to me, it felt like you could still feel the souls of the people who were there. Like, this was not a place that you actually left. I mean, that's kind of how it felt to me. And I'll say I've been to Dachau twice, and both times we went up, and it was just a beautiful day, absolutely beautiful. And both times within an hour, it was pouring down rain, absolutely weird. So it's just an interesting, it's an interesting atmosphere, and I think
Absolutely.
everyone should visit a concentration camp. Unfortunately, not everyone has the means or will have the means in their lifetime. So, if we wanted people to have have more of an understanding or to kind of feel a personal connection to this kind of thing, are there some movies or TV shows or anything that they can watch to kind of get a visual of what was going on, either in Armenian or the Holocaust or the Rwandan genocides?
Um, there's a few things that I like in regards to what's conveyed. Um, there is, and I think Chitwood, I think you and I we may have spoken about this before. HBO did a film called Conspiracy,
Mhm.
which deals with the Wannsee Conference, and it's 90 minutes long. And what's interesting about this particular film, it's based on transcripts, some edited transcripts from one of the members at the Wannsee Conference, and it focuses on the development of and the implementation of the final solution. And what makes it very, very sinister is the fact that you had 15 guys sitting around a table, eating, drinking, smoking, cracking jokes, while they are coming up with a way to eliminate all of the Jews of Europe.
Mhm.
And it basically kind of gives kind of a play-by-play of how it was going to be implemented. And so, that's kind of an interesting perspective. It doesn't contain any, blood or gore, or violence, or anything like that. It focuses on I don't know, the attitude and the methodology that's going to be used to basically make the genocide more efficient.
I think, Mr. Nunn, you've actually been to the Wannsee, is it the Wannsee Hotel?
Not to
It's a house.
mention,
It's a
Mansion?
mansion, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have been there, and it is a museum now dedicated to remembering the victims of the Holocaust. And again, big, beautiful house. You walk up to the front. It's just like in Conspiracy. Trees everywhere, big, long driveway in, big, grand entrance.
beautiful location.
Beautiful location. It's right on a lake.
Yeah,
And you can go out the back doors onto the back patio, and it's right there on the lake. So it's absolutely a beautiful place.
I
Um,
think, I think to kind of go along with your question there, Mr. Nunn, obviously something that our viewers would want to double check to make sure that they're able to actually watch these type of movies. But I know something that me and Mr. Alexandre tend to both use is Night in Fog.
yeah.
It's a more obscure documentary that I believe it was put together in the 1950s, just 5 or 6 years after
Yeah.
the final liberation of the camps. But I think it actually focuses on Dachau too, does it not?
It focuses on, well, it has some elements of Dachau, but it focuses on kind of like the business element of basically getting bids to construct various camps, and again, just the methodology of how we're going to go about the construction, the rounding up, and then of course carrying out some of the more heinous acts, with experimentation, and then of course the outright murder of individuals. But it kind of gives you a little bit of a few of the camps,
And I think
just, any single one.
think something that I like about Night and Fog a lot is that it's put together in a way that doesn't have to show you in these graphic details the horrors that actually happened. Whereas most documentaries, when you talk about the Holocaust, are going to be really like picture based, very focused on like this is what it was.
That's very
what
graphic.
happened to the victims.
Yeah.
It almost kind of gives you that same feeling that I got anyways from Dachau, was walking around the camps and experiencing it without anybody there. And really kind of letting your own knowledge in your mind really take that in. And it's really short. I think it's like 39 minutes long or something like that. It was probably the most expensive DVD I've ever bought for 39 minutes. I think it cost me like $30 for the for the 30 minutes. So I mean, it was well worth the dollar per
look
minute.
It up on
YouTube. I don't think it is on YouTube. That's the problem.
Yeah, a lot of these are not, unfortunately.
But one other one I know that we both use, and I definitely got the inspiration from you, Mr. Alexandre, was Hotel Rwanda. Although that one is a little bit more graphic and will be a little bit more subject to approval. I think it's definitely a Hollywood-made film, right? But I think it in a subject that is so touchy, I think it really does a good job of balancing both. This is what happened with the event, but also really trying to keep the viewer understanding for the human aspect of it. So
yep, there's another one that, unfortunately, it's an R-rated film. It's based pretty closely to. This was, has been one of my favorite books, written by the UNAMIR commander, Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire. Wrote a book called Shake Hands with the Devil, Humanity's Failure in Rwanda. And they made a movie based on the book with the same title. The movie is a Canadian movie, which really focuses on the experiences from the perspective of General Dallaire. And it does a great job, and it addresses things that I don't know, like Hotel Rwanda doesn't touch on, or any other film, because I mean, he truly was in the front lines. He is interacting with the perpetrators of the genocide. He's under strict orders, that you're there for peacekeeping, not peacemaking, and so you're essentially a bystander, to what's going on. And it deals with his experiences, his interactions with the leader of the Rwandan Patriotic Front and current president Paul Kagame. Deals with his interactions with the Interahamwe, the loss of soldiers who basically were protecting the prime minister who was murdered. But it is much more graphic than Hotel Rwanda, but it is quite good, and I would recommend, at least for you guys, to take a look at it if you can find it. It's not the easiest thing to find.
Yeah, and I think this is a great time to be able to just pick up a book and start reading some of the stuff, right? I think all too often I catch myself watching films, especially when they're based off of books, just out of pure convenience. But with the abundance of time and I guess drive for future learning, just picking up a book is probably the most impactful thing you could do.
So have either of you seen another film in Rwanda? It was called Sometime in April.
Mm-hmm.
No, never heard of it.
It's I think it stars Idris Elba, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It's a very different perspective, dealing with kind of like the reconciliation element, where you're going to have like local trials of the perpetrators, because let's face it, I mean, you're going to have couldn't even tell you how many perpetrators there were in the Rwandan genocide. I mean, hundreds of thousands,
Yeah.
that are carrying out the crime. But many of them, of course, they're going to, go without like the international tribunal putting them on trial. They're going to go back and live with their neighbors who they tried to kill for 100 days. And so the local villages are holding trials for these individuals to in essence to get them to acknowledge what they did, apologize for what they did before they actually integrate back into society, which is quite challenging considering the circumstances. But I mean, that was the reality of the situation. I mean, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people that perpetrated this crime that need to basically get reintegrated, if you will, into the local society.
Yeah, interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Yep.
Sounds
Definitely
really
on my
cool.
list.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think maybe now's a good time to maybe transition to the last bit for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something I think that's been on a lot of our minds, especially over the last week, especially since the closure is starting to set in and we're starting to prepare for other ways that we're going to be doing distance learning, all that kind of stuff is, what do we miss? What is it that we are realizing now that maybe we took for granted before? And we've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but what is something that you all miss, be it about school, be it about your daily routines, be it about just life in general? What has been on your mind?
For me, it comes down to just being able to have just communication interactions with my kids while I'm at work, with you guys at lunch. Let's be honest. I mean, all of us will have moments where we want to pull out our hair, and a class or a student or all of the classes, or it's like, this is one of those days. It's driving me crazy. But I miss the kids. I miss interacting with them. I miss joking with them. I miss the 35 minutes that we have for lunch where we just decompress and talk about whatever subject that needs to be talked about or doesn't need to be talked about. For example, the thing that's really eating at me now, fellas, is doggone May 22nd.
Yeah.
May 22nd. The thought was, hey, we could build another train to nowhere or whatever, little box, whatever, for the little end of the year get together. It's really disappointing, but you make the best of it. But I do miss being able to just communicate, just to interact, just to, especially now the seniors. I usually at this time of the year I get the, hey, Mr. Alexandre, I got accepted to, I'm going here, whatever the case may be, and I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that because a lot of these kids, I've known, of course, since they were in my class as a sophomore, but a lot of them have been friends with my daughter, longer than the high school tenure, and I miss, again, going back to not being able to see them walk across the stage and, just sharing the moment with their parents who we basically have gotten to know and in some cases become friends with, whatever the case may be. I'm going to miss that, and I miss you guys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we miss you, Mr. Alexandre.
I don't miss you at all. I don't even like you.
I just said that really directed towards Chitwood, Mr. Nunn.
Yeah,
but
I know.
since you're the guy controlling the video, I figured I have to be nice.
Yeah, no, and what I miss is exactly the same thing. I miss the interactions. I usually have mostly seniors every year, and this is that time of year where we are starting to wrap things up. We are starting to become or do more social things, and so we're missing those things. And we're not gonna have the same kind of graduation activities or the same kind of end of year activities that we normally would have. And so there's kind of that closure that normally we would get that we're just not going to get this year, and it sucks. But if this is what we have to do to survive. I think we can do it. I think we can handle it, but it's just a tough situation.
How about you, Mr. Chitwood?
Just echo everything else that you both have said. I miss my kids. I miss honestly going to work. I miss having that stable routine, the day-to-day routine. But little things like I miss. For me, I know I like establishing those relationships with the kids, and I think one of the ways that I think both of us actually do that is um, just playing music, as simple as it is. As kids walk in, be it for you on Fridays or me any other day of the week, is just seeing them happy to come to school, happy to learn, happy to be there, is something that I miss. I miss just being able to go about business as usual, and enjoy the process of teaching and learning. I think that's where we're all at. So you guys said it well.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you for a lovely afternoon chat. We'll hopefully see you guys again soon.
Yeah.
All right, man. Love you guys, and I mean that.
Yeah, it's mutual. It goes both ways.
Mutual.
Maybe in another life I could find you there. Pull away before your time. I can't deal it so unfair, and it feels like heaven so far away. And it feels like the world has grown cold now that you've gone away.
Leaving flowers on your grave to show that I still care. Black roses and Hail Marys can't bring back what's taken from me.
I reach to the sky and call out your name. And if I could trade, I would.
And it feels like
Heaven's so far away. And it stings, yeah, it stings how the world is so cold now that you've gone away.
gone away, yeah, 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 yeah.
Ooh, well, ooh,
Oh, yeah. I reach to the sky and call out your name. Oh, please let me trade. I would,
That's it for Emily, everybody.